We're talking about the history of protest on today's BFD. Occupy Wall Street is probably the most recent example of protest that most Americans can remember. So where did this all start? Are there bad protests as well as good ones? Is it always about marching in the street with picket signs? To answer all these questions, we have Professor Thaddeus Russell, who is also an expert in this interesting topic. Thank you so much for joining us, Thaddeus.
Thanks a lot.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
So I study and write about the history of the lowest orders of society, people we think of as the scum of the earth, people like criminals and prostitutes and slaves and drunks and slackers. And I found that they created a lot of the freedoms that we take for granted now. Things like the weekend and coloring your hair, wearing makeup, women going out in public without a male chaperone. What I would call that is tacit protest. These are people who aren't necessarily saying anything political, they may not even be thinking anything political, but simply by doing something that's against the norm, they are changing the world in that way. It's a protest that is by action, not by thought. It's not ideological, it is behavioral. I mean, it's done every single day by almost everyone in the world by purchasing things, right? People buy things. They don't like something, they'll buy something else, right? This goes on constantly. This is voting with your wallet, in a sense. I don't like Walmart. I'd rather shop at this store. You take your money there. Well, guess what happens? That new store does well and Walmart diminishes.
So has protest evolved from a violent or a non-violent source?
There have always been violent and non-violent, large, small, chaotic, and orderly protests. The record generally shows that actually the more disruptive and unfortunately the more violent a protest, generally speaking, the more effective it has been.
Okay, is there forms that aren't violent that have been successful?
The dissolution of communism. What you had there was millions and millions and millions of people seeing things outside of their world, outside of the communist bloc. And simultaneously, they're moving away from communism as an ideology. They're moving away from the idea that I want to live here forever. There was very little violence in the revolutions that toppled communism. It was literally people walking off their jobs or walking into the streets. By 1989, they walked to the Berlin Wall, they broke it down, then they walked through that hole and they went shopping in West Berlin.
How has technology shifted our forms of protesting?
So if you look at Arab Spring, there's no question that most of those protests were facilitated through social media, through Twitter and Facebook. You don't have to go through official channels to get something published anymore. Now, if you have an idea, you can instantly put it before the entire world.
If someone wants to make the world a better place, where do they start?
I would say stop thinking on behalf of others. There's so much of that, right? People on the left and on the right, they're always speaking on behalf of others, what they need and want. We don't know, right? Let's instead counsel the politics of self-interest. It's really this simple. You decide what you want. And then it's a question of strategy. How do you get there? And that will often mean working with others who have the same desire.
Well, thank you so much, Thaddeus.
Thanks very much. It was a lot of fun.
Your right to speak out for what you believe in is something that cannot be discounted. You can exercise that right now by clicking the link in the description below to speak out for those who cannot speak for themselves. And thank you so much again to Thaddeus Russell. Definitely check out his book, A Renegade History of the United States. For BFD, I'm Marisha Ray. Don't forget to subscribe.